my Muramatsu family, my friends at Little Piper, and my flute friends everywhere. And welcome to another Treasure Tuesday. I'm Sharon Sparrow, the assistant principal flutist of the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. And today's treasure is the beautiful Menuet from La Relation by Georges Bizet. This is a favorite of mine, both as a solo work and also in the orchestra. Your friends at Little Piper have made it possible for you to download the music to this today, and also to download the accompaniment so that you won't need to play it alone. And now I get to spend 10 minutes with you, giving you some practice and performance tips for this piece. Let's get started. The first thing to think about in this is the rhythm at the beginning. Oh, it's always so important to play very, very accurate rhythm. And so in order to practice this, you might want to try turning everything into a 16th note just to see how everything fits. Let me show you. Now, if I play it as written and I still think the subdivision of the 16th, my rhythm should be perfect. That's a great way to practice things. Now let's skip down and look at measure 7. I noticed that Mr. Monroe puts a pianissimo there. And the reason why he does that is that the tonality changes from E flat major, which we start in, which is such a happy key, and then for a couple measures, we get into C minor. So if we play it a little softer there, it really has a very nice colored effect. Try that, you're going to stick with it and like it very much. Letter B is a very, very long phrase, and so you want to be careful to pace yourself and not start this too loud. Also, another thing you have to remember between B and C is to keep your breathing in tempo and not to be late after your breaths. It's so easy to do that. So breathe right in time and then pace yourself for this long, beautiful phrase. You might have noticed that I didn't take the breath that Mr. Monroe suggested in the third bar of B, but I waited and instead breathed after the downbeat of measure 23. Now that works better for me, but feel free to breathe where you feel is best for you. But beware, just don't be late after your breath. Letter C is just kind of a fancy way of saying letter B. Listen. Fancy in there, and it's quite fun to play. Coming up in these next measures is something I just want to talk to you for a second about. It's the slur with the dots underneath it. Now, we often get confused. What do we play? Do we slur? Do we tongue? Do we play staccato? I like to think of it like this. Imagine you've turned on your faucet and the water is running straight down. And let's say if you stop it and start it, and stop it and start it, and you're watching the water and it stops and starts. Now imagine this, you turn on your faucet and the water is running down, and you just kind of touch your finger under it a bunch of times, like you don't go all the way across, just touch it to it. And the water never stops. It just kind of touches the stream right there. That's how I like to think of these staccatos, these dots under the slur. Now the slur is like the water, which is my airstream. So I keep blowing. I don't stop my air. And then the finger that touches it is my tongue. And it's just gonna touch, very slightly touch my airstream while my airstream keeps moving. Sounds like this. You'll have fun trying that, I'm sure. This whole page up to letter D is what I call played on our indoor voice. Now, it definitely has some inflection and it even has some fortes, but it's not forte, it's the indoor voice forte. Now that we've done that at letter D, we can go outside. We can use our full voice. We can call to our friends. And that's the kind of sound we've been saving up for at letter D. You have to sound in that section like you've invited 4 flutist friends over, when you can do that. And they're all playing together in one, as one. And that's the kind of robust sound you'll need at letter D. Letter D has a little bit of a tricky rhythm too. Make sure that you negotiate your dotted 8th, 16th perfectly, or else you'll end up a little bit off with the accompaniment. And so again, if you practice that whole section by subdividing into 16th notes, you will have perfect rhythm. Now beware, when you listen to this piano track or the orchestra, you'll find that they do not share that first 16th note with you. They come on your second 16th note. So if you put a little tiny little accent on that A flat, you'll be able to be together a little bit better. That one right there. So then it returns to our indoor voices at letter F. And one thing that is very tricky about playing this particular piece well is the slur with all those intervals going up and down and up and down. You have to make sure to keep your support system engaged for that. And you also have to keep your air moving. And one other thing I do is I change the grouping of it. So instead of thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, which sounds like this, because it's kind of bumpy if I think like that. I like to think 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And just by changing the way I group it in my head, it seems to smooth it out. Let me play that in tempo. Oh, that's so much nicer. I have time to share one more trick with you about this piece. Now, there are a lot of middle E flats, and it's kind of a pet peeve of mine because students sometimes play that E flat with their first finger down. Ooh. So the correct fingering is always with that first finger up on our lovely flutes because it sounds cloudy if we leave it down. Here's the trick. If you have an open hole flute, if you have one of these beautiful open hole flutes, if you take, see my 4th finger right here, my ring finger, it's covering the entire hole. If I just vent the hole just a teeny tiny bit, I can bring the pitch up on that E flat. So experiment with that at home, and you'll find that you can do a lot of fancy things with these holes in your flute that you didn't even know that you could. And one of them really does help you out with pitch. Okay, now let's just talk about the tempo before we start, because I've chosen kind of a quick tempo, metronome marking 76 for this, because it's a minuet, and ultimately a minuet is a dance. And if you play it too slowly, it does lose that dance-like quality. So I'm gonna play it a little bit quicker than you might have been used to hearing it. And the other thing is, when you play in the orchestra, it's not always up to you to decide either your tempo or your rubato. You have to rely on your conductor. And in this case, you have to rely on your pianist because you have a recorded piano track. Now on this recorded track, the pianist or the conductor takes lots of rubatos, and to follow along, you're also going to have to rubato. So these take place pretty much at the ends of phrases. So once you practice it with the metronome, it's going to be a little different, as it always is when you get into the orchestra or when you collaborate. It's been such a pleasure sharing this piece with you, and I want to thank the people at Muramatsu for just making these Treasure Tuesdays possible. Here's the Menuet by Georges Bizet. much, and I really look forward to spending another Treasure Tuesday with you.